Call me old man Wade.
Damn you, old man!
Wait.
Old ass man.
Shut up, old man. You smell like fart.
No!
Old man.
He's so old, he got a podcast on cassette.
Fuck, you're old.
Damn it, Wade.
Do you know how happy I was when the Celtics decided they were bringing back Al Horford? Like, that made me incredibly happy. And then on top of that, they're bringing Tice back. And that made me happy. Tice was my guy. But I'm also a fan of, like, the dirty work players, so.
See, that I didn't find that move very enticing, but I waited until you took a drink of a sip of your drink.
I just did that because you're already, like, on a roll. It's like, there's no way you don't get the title, but you're starting off strong, man. Starting off strong.
I didn't care for that move at the time. I thought Derek White, I was like, Jesus, like, what are we doing? We already, like, are they trading smart? Is that why they brought in Derek White? And I was very wrong about the additions that they made. I liked the Horford thing because I always thought he played guys like Adebayo and Embiid really well.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, get rid of 6 foot, 150-pound Kemba Walker, who's hurt all the time. Like, dude's just a walking injury.
I love that guy,
bring
too,
back
man.
Horford. All right, I'll take it. Kemba's a guy that I liked when he was on the court, but he's so unreliable. You know how I feel about guys that are unreliable.
Which we will be getting into. But you know what's funny? As I remember when they traded to get Kyrie, I'm like, y'all should have traded to get Kemba. Kyrie's not going to work here. Because he's another one of those guys who seems to never play more than 60 games a year.
I actually predicted that trade about 2 months before it happened. Like, I sent a text to my brothers, and I was like, how's this? Isaiah, and then, like, I said, you know, a combination of these players, and, like, I listed, like, 3 of the guys that they ended up sending, including Jay Crowder. I'm like, for Kyrie, and, you know, send him a draft pick or something. And, like, it was almost exactly what I predicted.
And it's funny because at the end of the day, the Celtics have made out in the deal. But I think the funniest thing that I saw involving the Celtics in trades was the Celtics traded Paul Pierce, an aging in age KG and Paul Pierce, to the Brooklyn Nets to end up getting Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And I was like, dear God, I never even thought about that.
Not only that, like, they also traded Jason Terry, all of which I think they had like 110 years between them. But they everybody forgets. It's like, oh yeah, they drafted Simmons. I mean, they drafted Tatum that year. They won the draft lottery, and they traded down to spot 3 because they knew the Lakers were going to take Lonzo Ball with number 2, and they knew Philadelphia wanted Ben Simmons so badly. No, that wasn't Ben Simmons that year. That was fucking Markelle Fultz.
Oh, man. Is he even still in the league anymore? The last time I saw him, he was in Orlando.
I think he's still in Orlando.
But I was really rooting for him, too, man.
They took Tatum with that pick, that number 3 pick. They traded down to number 3, got another first-round pick, which I think they turned into one of these other guys, like Pritchard or Williams or one of those guys.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that Danny Ainge built up a lot of assets, like a treasure trove full of assets. They're like, oh, they're going to use all these to go get a guy, and then, like, they never did. They're like, oh, they're going to use all these to go get this guy, and they never did. Like, oh, they're going to get Anthony Davis. They're going to get KD. They're going to get Harden. It's like, oh, don't get Harden. No.
Yeah.
But, like, they kept saying they were going to trade all these guys, and then they didn't end up doing it. Then they boot Ainge out, and then, you know, kind of fire Stevens, but I always thought that move was we're kicking him upstairs because he's still under contract.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants him, they have to trade for him, a la Doc Rivers.
I never knew you could trade for trade for a coach until that happened.
They did it. Actually, there was a precedent prior to that, not in the NBA, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traded for John Gruden from the Raiders in like 2000, 99, 2000, like right before that season, and he ended up winning the Super Bowl against the Raiders with the Bucs.
God, I always love the moments where you get one of those times where it's just like, well, bet you regret that shit now, don't you?
Yeah, trading the coach who ends up coming to face you like that year. And it's like he knew everything they were going to do. They beat him 48-21. Like it was fucking ridiculous.
Oh, man. Well, anyway, welcome to the Old Man Wade Show. I am your host, the God of Stub and the Lord of Laughter, Old Man Wade. And that voice you hear is the sexy, sexy, sexy husband of the, what did I call her before? I called her the Marlon Brando of Merlot.
Marlon Brando of Merlot.
Her husband, Patsy the Angry Nerd.
Oh, what's going on? Good to be back. It's been a while.
It's been way too long, man.
I haven't even done my own show. It's been 2 months. I actually, when we were doing our pre-game stuff here, I just finished uploading the newest episode to Facebook. So we got the new episode up covering Roger Smith from American Dad. Yeah, it's a good one.
Ricky.
Got a lot of nerve showing your face around here, Ricky Spanish.
I just love that episode had nothing to do. Like, there is no continuity in this episode. It didn't really actually happen. But goddamn, is that a great fucking episode.
And then you get the voiceover by Werner Herzog at the end, talking about the butterfly. Like, that was amazing. Again, one of the... I stand by this. American Dad is a 1,000 times better than Family Guy. And it definitely takes a look at, like, Family Guy is kind of turning on its head all the like sitcoms and animated shows that preceded it.
Yeah.
American Dad is definitely like a fuck you to conservative right wing America.
Isn't it great though? It is one of my favorite things in the world. And you know what? That I'm not going there. I'm gonna have a nice happy.
Yeah, we will end up sidetracked and not get to the point of what we're trying to talk about today.
Happy little flowers. Happy little flowers. So, I've been dying to have this conversation with you about the NBA, and I want to start off with Ben Simmons. Yeah. You have been a Ben Simmons... You haven't been on the Ben Simmons hype train ever. You've never been.
No.
You've always... But the thing about it is, unlike some people, when you have a conversation, you're not, like, hating. You're not like, oh, Ben Simmons and blah, 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 he's overhyped. You broke down, actually in an article, about why Ben Simmons is overrated. And unlike Skip Bayless, you can get past his one accomplishment against Rudy Gobert. And if we're being honest, certain All-Star selections shouldn't really matter. I don't really give Ben Simmons' All-Star selections much credence because it's, in his sense, like the East, like, you know what I mean? At that time, the East wasn't that big a deal. And honestly,
I don't give All-Star appearances in any sport any credence. It doesn't matter. It's a popularity contest. I can't tell you how many times I've seen billboards, like, vote for your favorite player. Not the best, your favorite. So anybody with name recognition, like, there was a year...
Yao Ming?
No, I was thinking Alonzo Mourning missed the entire year with his kidney issues, but somehow was voted in as a starter. Stupidest shit I ever heard. But people are always like, well, how would you fix it? Easy. You let the players vote for who they think is the all-star. They're not allowed to vote for themselves or anybody on their team. You have to vote for somebody on another team. And you don't have to have every team represented because that's stupid. If you have a shitty team like Orlando's not going to have any all-stars. Detroit's not going to have any all-stars. Indiana's not going to have any all-stars. You know, they might, but they don't necessarily.
That's true. I also had the year they changed it because of the Zsa Pachulia shit.
Oh yeah, yep.
So there's always been flaws in the All-Star game. I also think I get it now. Like, now that I'm older, I understand that it has nothing to do with the NBA in general. It's all about the fans. It's all about getting people who. Mm-hmm. It's money. It's a cash grab. Like, you know what I mean? And like, go ahead.
The way I look at it is, if you want to have it, and this goes for every single sport, I do like the draft idea. Once you get past the starters, but you let the players vote for who they think, because these are the guys going up against each other every single night.
Yep.
Like, they notice, you know, like Marcus Smart would be an all-star, I think.
Oh, no question.
If you let these guys, like, oh yeah, this guy's so tough, you know, he's such a good defender. Like, how do you get Defensive Player of the Year but not an all-star selection? You know, how do you win one of those awards without being an all-star? So let the players pick the teams, and then once the teams are set, vote for the starters.
Yep. That makes the most.
And then whoever's left, draft them.
Yeah. That makes the most sense. But again, like, we're also I think we're using a little bit more common sense than most people, specifically because, like, there's a bias. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll be the first. Like, one of my closest friends calls me a homer. Like, I almost never root against the Celtics. I can't do it. I don't. Even if and I'm one of those guys who doesn't watch the NBA if the Celtics aren't involved. I don't care. The Celtics aren't playing. I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? But
I love playoff basketball.
Well, playoff basketball is something different, though. But I can't.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of issues with the NBA specifically because, like, it's been kind of trash. Like, it's been very cookie. You know what? We're getting off topic. But Ben Simmons. Like, so before you get into, I'm going to challenge you here. Before you get into his faults, say 3 nice things about Ben Simmons.
He clearly doesn't care what people think of him as far as his fashion sense, and he will wear literally anything. He always looks well groomed. And
say something nice about his game.
All right, he is an above average defender and passer. He's an above average defender and passer. But it helps when you're 6'10".
Yeah. So now let's break down his game in general. He's good. He's a good ball handler for someone who's 6'10". He does. And, and if you correct me if I'm wrong, he doesn't turn the ball over much.
No, not a lot. Mainly because he plays point guard, and if he's going up against somebody, you know, it's somebody who's 6'5", 6'4", 6 feet. You know, so it's a little easier to keep the ball away from that person.
Yeah, when you can just turn around and put your shoulder towards him.
Hold the ball up in the air. Go ahead, get it. You know, like you would do, like to your younger siblings, you just hold the ball in the air.
Which is even funnier about that is because he couldn't dunk on a 5'11" Trae Young when he had the opportunity to.
Yeah, we'll get to Trae Young in a minute.
So that was my biggest thing about Ben Simmons is, like, I always said, well, give him time. But when I saw that, I said, yeah, I'm out. I'm out on the Ben Simmons project, especially considering I was a Michael Carter-Williams guy. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, he obviously, like, didn't pan out the way he was supposed to be, but I also wonder how much of that is just the abandonment of it all, which is something we'll get into when it comes to mental toughness and people not understanding that, like, mental health can be disparaging to your game. But this year was something else with him.
I've never seen anything like it.
And it's getting to the point where we talked about it in our group chat, and I talked about it with my homegirl Talar about it. Like, there's going to be a Ben Simmons rule.
Yep.
There's no way they can't do it anymore, specifically because of what happened. He flat out just didn't play all 82 games. And granted, there's no guarantee that his initial back problems didn't stem from something that just happens on regular everyday life. Because we've seen people who get hurt just stepping the wrong way.
So, yeah, you're not going to herniate a disc stepping the wrong way. Like, that's what they've been saying his issue is, that he has a herniated disc. That's something that you get from, say, contact drills. You're doing something. You're not going to just shoot around and herniated disc.
I've had 3 back surgeries. I'm on workman's comp for a current back injury I received at work. I think I've had 2 herniated discs. First time was playing basketball. Second time it.
So we know that's not how Simmons did it.
Maybe it was sitting too long. The second time it was. I can't remember what it was the second time, but I ended up needing. Oh yeah, something happened and it was just standing, like literally just standing all day on marble floors when there's no stress pads because the building I worked for said it wasn't aesthetically pleasing. So they was like, you don't get a stress pad. That is an exact quote from management. So I don't know if there was any way someone with his kind of money can get hurt because we don't know. Maybe he was practicing while he wasn't actually playing basketball. It is actually possible. I am here to just play devil's advocate this entire time. What are your thoughts? I'm giving you the floor.
As far as him hurting himself, like
we're gonna get into him not playing in Philly later, but we're gonna get to the most recent news of him hurting himself.
So, however he herniated his disc, I honestly don't think that there was ever a real back problem. I think that was something that kind of got fabricated, or maybe like he slept wrong and he was like, "Oh, my back hurts. Hey, doc. You know, can you say that I have a herniated disc? Like, here's $5,000, you know?" I'm not saying he specifically bribed somebody, but, like, it seems a little shady that he went from, oh, it's my mental health to, oh, yeah, it's my back. So because my back is hurt, it was from when I was playing, so therefore you have to pay me my money. Because it seemed awfully convenient when they were like, you know, Philadelphia kept saying, like, go to our doctor, go to this person, you know, go to this psychiatrist, you know, the team one, get a second opinion. Like, we want our team people to evaluate you. He's like, no, we're not doing that. I'm just going to keep going to the same people I've been seeing, and they'll keep telling you what I want them to say. Which, to me, is a red flag. Like, if you're really hurt, like, I get that there are instances where, you know, you could get the total opposite thing where, you know, your doctor is like, yeah, here's your issue, and you go to the team doctor, and the team doctor has the team's interest in mind, and they're like, yeah, it looks like it's, you know, sore or it's hurt, but you can definitely play through it.
Yeah.
You know, you saw that shit in the NFL for decades.
So I will say this. So, like, there, if you actually do look it up, there you will find that there is you really can. Back pain can affect your mental health can affect your back. Like,
oh yeah, of course.
So, and I also will say that we've all worked for corporations in which the Philadelphia 76ers are. And when someone says, hey, we want you to go see our doctors, we may both be a little skeptical because we know shenanigans could be involved.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm wondering what the middle ground could have been and if there was an actual middle ground that could have happened.
Well, there tends to be, in any sport, there tends to be certain doctors or specialists that everybody would go to for specific injuries. Like, for years, it was Dr. James Andrews. He would do all the ACL surgeries, you know, or the Tommy John surgeries. You know, like, there were specific guys that people throughout sports would go to for specific injuries. Because in specific, you know, you're going to tear your ACL in every sport. You know, football, baseball, basketball, it doesn't matter. But, you know, say Tommy John ligament replacement surgery, that's something that you would need a specialist for, and you're generally only going to see that in baseball in pitchers because of the specific mechanics of pitching. But there are guys that have, you know, different injuries, like, oh, I tore a ligament in my thumb. I'm going to go see this guy who's like the ligament specialist. He does all the Tommy John surgeries.
Yes.
So I'm gonna go see him, even though he's a baseball guy and I'm a hockey man. Like, it doesn't matter. It's that guy's area of expertise. So there could have been someone, like maybe there's a specific sports psychiatrist that everyone goes to see,
Yes,
who specializes in professional athletes, or someone who specializes in, back injuries in professional athletes. Now, the other thing I wanted to touch on, because I totally agree that when you have a specific injury, and, I agree that your mental health can affect that injury, especially if you're always thinking about it. It becomes psychosomatic, and, like I always say, there's mind over matter. Like, tell yourself it doesn't hurt, but if you tell yourself it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts,
yes,
guess what? It's gonna fucking hurt, and it's never gonna get better, because you're gonna wake up, even if you're not in pain, you're gonna be like, ooh, my back hurts. It's like, and it's like that phantom pain. There's nothing physically wrong with you, but you convince yourself that there's something wrong. It's almost like Munchausen syndrome.
I remember Skip Bayless actually brought that up today, because he was saying that whenever he talks about someone with a knee problem, he said he always leaves the studio with his knee hurting, because all he's thinking about is knee pain. So
Yep.
Sure enough, when he leaves the studio, he's like, "Oh crap, my knee hurts," because he's thinking about it. So there's a lot to unpack there, and neither one of us are going to criticize Ben Simmons' mental health issues, because we are both mental health advocates. We're both people who have or do deal with it. So that's not what we're thinking about.
No, I'm not here. There's plenty to get into who this guy is without, like, none of the things that I'm going to talk about are really like personal things. They might be character flaws, but it's not like, oh, he's faking his mental health issues, or he's doing that. Like, I'm only gonna make my conversation is going to be based on my observations of what he has put out, what he has said, what he has done, his behavior, the things that I can observe. I'm not going to speculate. I'm going to make my conversation based solely on my observation.
All right, so I want to talk about a few things. We're still staying on the Ben Simmons thing, but I also want to look at his awards. I want to see what we're going to talk about. What he's done. We're going to talk about what he's done, and we're going to talk about his stats and why he hasn't really improved. So he led the league in steals in 2020. That's a huge feat considering he's 6'10". All NBA, NBA All Rookie First Team. It's a feat, but it also depends on the class. He was Rookie of the Year. Same thing, depends on the class. Here's a really good stat. Go ahead.
Asterisk on that Rookie of the Year, because it was his second year in the league.
Yeah,
Jason Tatum should have been Rookie of the Year.
I have a big issue with, and Jalen Rose talked about this. Jalen Rose said that he doesn't think players who sit their first year should be Rookie of the Year. He goes, because they learn something that other rookies don't do. They see how the teams run. They see how the not only how the team is run, they see how the NBA run, the league is run. So they have a foot up on a lot of these players now, specifically because of that. And I honestly feel that that is an absolute disadvantage that a lot of these guys come in with. And it's not cool, for being completely honest, for being frank about it. And Ben Simmons, who
not
sat...
only that, it's not like he just... Like, I totally agree with what you're saying, but his first year, like, he had an injury. Like, he was hurt, which, kind of should have been a bit of a red flag. But he was hurt, like you said. He was able to see the comings and goings, getting to, he did participate in some practices. It's not like he just sat on the sidelines and didn't do anything.
Yes.
He got to see the drills. He got to be in the arena, feel that atmosphere. It's different from being at LSU especially being in a city with as rabid a fan base as Philadelphia. These people will throw batteries at it, hidden in snowballs at you. They'll boo Santa Claus.
Yeah, Philadelphia, like, people can say whatever they want about what the Celtics fans were saying to Kyrie, which we'll also get into. But, Doug, we're not throwing... Well, there are a lot of racist fans here. But we're not throwing batteries at Santa Claus.
Yeah, like, there's bad fan, and then there's, Philadelphia casual fan.
Oh, also, we're wrong. He's 6'11", which is even funnier.
Yeah, they have him listed as 6'10".
Yeah, so...
There was an Onion article that came out earlier today. Ben Simmons tells Mets he's ready to play now.
Let me tell you, the Onion...
It's like the Bill Simmons quote. Like, oh, Ben Simmons will be ready in Game 8.
I will say this. The Onion is one of the greatest news sources ever, and I love when people read The Onion and think that it's real news. It's one of my favorite things ever.
To be fair, the wild shit that's been happening over the past few years, like, even in the last couple of weeks, like, Ron DeSantis attacks Disney World, like...
Yeah. So...
but again, not getting into that. That's something else.
So, but also, we have to add this, 2-time NBA All-Defensive First Team, that is a major stat.
That's an accomplishment.
That is
something that you
twice.
have to earn. You have to have the mindset. You have to have the skill set. That's something you have to continually work on. I agree with that. Even if it may be, like I said, slightly skewed, because you're 6'11", you're almost 7 feet tall, but the guys you're guarding are 5'6", 10 inches shorter than you are.
But
if you're,
with that being said, though, it's also a little more difficult for someone that tall to guard someone quicker than he is. So there's also that.
Yeah, there's that, but you have the reach, you have the ability to, like, 2 of their steps is 1 of yours.
That's true.
You have the ability to recover. I used to bring up Zdeno Chara who played for the Bruins for a number of years. Biggest man in the history of the NHL. 6'9", 255 pounds.
Jesus.
7 feet tall with skates. He had his own specific, specialized stick made, where it's like he was never the fastest guy, but he had like an 8-foot reach with his fucking stick. Like, plus he was the strongest guy, and he had the hardest slap shot in the history of the league. So,
but let's also mention the fact that just because they're big doesn't necessarily mean that they're good. Because we've seen many of players who have been big, but as a buddy of mine used to say when we used to play basketball, he used to call them ice cream in the sun. That's how soft they are. So he was also all NBA.
7'7", like,
yeah,
he wasn't that great.
So we also have All NBA third team 3 times, 2019 to 2021. So now that leads us to this year where he didn't play a single game. I honestly, and hold up, let's get into his stats. Career-wise, he's averaging 15 points a game, almost eight assists, and 8 rebounds. Anybody in the league would take that. Go ahead, you were gonna say.
Yeah, I would take that from a role player. I would take that from a guy that, it's like, oh, he's a really good sixth man, or he's, the 4th option in the offense. Those are numbers I would expect somebody like Marcus Smart to put up, Seth Curry, a decent player on a bad team. I don't expect $40 million a year for 15 points, especially for a guy who's 6'10". You know what I mean? Like, those aren't impressive numbers to me whatsoever.
So allow me to retort with Draymond Green. Draymond Green is also an all-star. He's also a crucial part of the Golden State Warriors. They do not win. I honestly think they do not win any of the championships they win without him. He's out.
But allow me to retort. Draymond brings a mental toughness to the game. Draymond brings an edge to the game. Draymond brings the ability, nay, the necessity to have to cover him all over the floor.
That's also
because
true.
He can shoot from anywhere on the floor. He's not as lethal as, Clay or Steph. Obviously, few are. But he can hit timely shots. He can get down low. He'll get to the foul line. He's fine if you want to foul him. He'll go to the line. He'll hit, 80% of his free throws.
This is all you can really ask for.
I mean, he does the dirty work. I would say defensively, they're on par with each other, as far as raw defensive talent. Draymond's going to put up similar numbers, maybe only, 10 points a game, 12 points a game. But he does everything else. You can play him in the fourth quarter. You can play him in crunch time. Because not only will he make shots himself, he will make sure that you get open shots, and he will lock down the other team's best player. He doesn't have to guard a guy who's, 5'5". He can guard anybody.
That's true. You got me there. I have no retort. I have no response to that. So this is something I said this in the group chat, and I've said this to a few other people, that if Ben Simmons can't handle what comes with the NBA, maybe he shouldn't play. And I firmly believe that health and home first. Like, you know what I mean? If he can't handle what's going on in the league, I think he should find something else to do, specifically because, like, you know what I mean? I don't want him to be in a position where things get so bad that his depression gets worse. And if he can't handle it, right off into the sunset.
He has 3 years and $114 million left on his contract. He's 25, 26, somewhere in there. He did lose a ton of his money this year because, this wild theory that you should show up and do your job in order to draw a paycheck, we'll talk about Kyrie in a little while. But
yeah, it's one thing when you get hurt on the job. It's another thing when you just refuse to play in general.
Right. And like I said, we'll get to Kyrie in a minute. There's an issue that I have with Simmons, and again, it's a character flaw. It's not me attacking him, and I hate when anytime you try to criticize someone, you're just like, oh, you're just a hater. It's like, no, here are the facts. When you watch this guy, there's the stats, and then there's the eyeball test. The eyeball test is, I watched this guy. What did he shoot in that series against Milwaukee last year? It was against Milwaukee when they got bounced out, right?
Yes.
So he played well, and again, like Skip Bayless, he blocked Trae Young's shot. Yeah, he should. He's a foot taller.
He averaged 10 points. Ben Simmons averaged 10 points, 9.5 assists, and 7.6 rebounds in 11 games against Bucks in his career.
Okay. Again, in the playoffs last year, when they got knocked out, like his last game, when he refused that layup.
Yeah.
I think he shot.
That was Atlanta.
It was against Atlanta?
Atlanta when
because Atlanta knocked them out. That's right.
You're right. Which should not have happened. There's no way.
No.
And especially because I am a Joel Embiid fan. That dude, there aren't many people in the league who have as much fucking heart as he does. He plays hurt. He wants to play injured. Remember when he got hurt, he was just like, I want to play back. And they came back, he goes, oh, I'm playing every game. They're like, you can't play back-to-backs. He goes, I want to play back-to-backs. They're like, no. You know what I mean? They had to literally tell him, you cannot do this, because he wants to play. When he got knocked out of the playoffs, people made fun of him for crying, but I'm like, I respect the shit out of that. It's the same thing KG did when he lost.
It's that passion and that drive and that will to succeed that, he was like the scariest player in the league this year. Like, nobody wanted any part of him.
No.
And I'm kind of glad the Celtics didn't draw them in the first round because that series would still be going on.
Maybe not. You gotta remember.
Well,
I'd like to see. I'll bring you to the court case. James Harden v. the playoffs.
Yeah, but Maxey and Tidal have been picking up that slack, and as much as I like Horford and Tice, maybe Horford 10 years ago would be a good matchup with Embiid.
And not even 10 years.
Even
5 years ago. 5 years ago.
Yeah, before he went to Philadelphia. Like, he was the one guy that could shut Embiid down on this team. But neither here nor there. When it comes to that series against the Hawks that went 7 games, Ben Simmons took, 4 total shots in 7 fourth quarters.
They ended up benching him. They ended up benching him because he refused to shoot.
He wouldn't shoot, and he wouldn't drive to the even if you're a superstar, if you're a guy making $40 million, and I know he only makes 38, so excuse me the $2 million, but if you're a guy on a super max deal, and you're having an off night, you're still really good defensively. Look what Jason Tatum did against the Nets. He was garbage shooting the ball. So what did he do? He stepped up defensively, and he started passing the ball all over, getting his teammates involved. Now, if you want to get yourself going and you need to get yourself some easy points, what do? You drive to the goddamn basket, because that's all Simmons does to begin with. That's all he does. He does not shoot outside of 5 feet. And I mentioned that in my article. I looked at his career shot chart when I wrote that 3 years ago. When he shoots, if he's between 5 and 10 feet, his shooting percentage goes from 70%, 80% within 5 feet, because it's all layups and dunks, and he's 6'10", or 6'11". When he goes outside of 5 feet, just 5 to 10 feet, his percentage drops to 30%.
Yeah, I'm looking at I think this is StatMuse, and looking at the shots that he takes, so we'll just look at this was the last 58 games he played in 2020, 2021, he shot 55% in general. However, I'm looking at this chart. 90% of them were in the painted area. It looks like he took 10 threes, he made 3. And that's the funny thing about it is, if he's shooting 30% from the 3-point line, let's say he shoots 10 for 30, and then he shoots 30 for 100. Do you know what people have to start doing now?
He's a dangerous 3-point shooter.
He's
30% from 3 requires you to be covered.
Yeah, he's not. I was actually looking someone else up, Andre Roberson, who Chris Paul notoriously saw him and went nope, and didn't even bother guarding him because they know even if he's going to shoot, he's shooting 20%. People had to defend Antoine Walker from 3-point line, and Charles Barkley they had to defend from the 3-point line, and then they are both notoriously bad 3-point shooters. But when you know the person's so scared of shooting, it's nothing you're gonna do. We could talk about Ben Simmons all day, but we also have mentioned former Celtic, former Cavalier, Kyrie Irving,
future former Net, who I didn't know apparently said he could be GM. Oh yeah. In his press conference, how him and first of all, he doesn't need a coach. If he doesn't need a coach, why does he need a GM? And he proved yes, you do need a coach. But yeah, to kind of touch on something you said earlier, we're not talking about injuries. Yes, Kyrie's injured all the time, like you alluded to. In 11 years, he's played 60 games 4 times, which means 7 times he hasn't played at least 60 games. There were also how many times this year, and I said this on my sports show when my brothers were still on.
I'm sorry, what's the name of your sports show? What's the name of your sports show again?
The Loudest Sports Show.
Okay.
Because which has also been on hiatus. I think we've done 1 episode in 6 months. But we talked about these two players playing together, and I said it would never work, and these guys will never win a championship because they're two of the most neurotic, thin-skinned players I've ever seen. Durant especially, with his friggin' burner accounts on Twitter. Like, grow the fuck up, dude. When the two of them, I said they wouldn't mesh together because Kyrie just does whatever Kyrie wants to do, and he's so selfish, and he doesn't give a shit about anyone else. And like, no, they're friends. Like, yeah, okay. It doesn't matter if guys are friends. Harden was friends with Westbrook. We saw how well that worked. You know, like, nobody listened to me when I said this because everyone was just looking at it like on paper, or if it was like a 2K team. Like, oh, they have these two guys, they'll be unstoppable. Because for a long time in the NBA, all that mattered was who had the two best players. You know, like rank the top 5 players in the series. You know, like, oh, you have 3 of the top 5? Yeah, you're winning this series. The exception being 2011, when the Mavs beat the Heat. But for the most part, whoever has the top three of the top 5 players wins that series. And I was like, look, you know, it's not going to work. Kyrie's just going to do whatever he wants. He's already said he doesn't need a coach. He's already tuned out the coach before they even started the season. And what does he do? Like a weekend? Oh, I'm not showing up. I texted my teammates, but I didn't have the courtesy or respect for Steve Nash to text him and be like, yeah, I can't play. And then the riots happened, and he's like, oh man, I'm so distraught, I can't play. Oh man, I can't play. And like, he didn't play for 2 weeks. And you know, every time he gets upset about anything, like, he turns into everybody else's issue. Do you remember when the first game he played against the Celtics in the Garden, and he had that fucking smudge stick with all the goddamn sage?
Yeah.
And he's walking around saging the whole place, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, he does it all the time. Oh, yeah, that's all he does.
And no one ever saw him do it again?
Have you seen him fucking do it since? No. He's never done it anywhere else since. It's, hey, look at me, look at my theatrics, look how spiritual I am. Oh, did I mention that I'm fasting for Ramadan?
And apparently so was, I didn't even know apparently Jaylen Brown was too.
Yeah, but only one of them was like, did you know that that's what I'm doing? Also, did you know that I'm an artist? I'm a philosopher. No, you shouldn't criticize me because art is subjective. So if I have a bad night, it's just because my art wasn't on point.
No. Effort is something that you can't see.
Shit, though?
I do not. I'm glad I don't.
Earlier this year, he's like, I'm an artist. This is my art. And I was like, oh my God. Because people were criticizing him because he wasn't playing well. And he's like, oh, I'm an artist. And art is subjective. What the fuck? I don't have to listen. What did he say? Like, I don't have to listen to peons like you or something? Like,
I need to find this.
Oh my God. It was unreal, the shit that he was saying. And it's like, are you like a 15th century French duke? What is going on here?
All right, here we go.
What do you got?
Oh no, this was that stupid thing from Uncle Drew.
This was a press conference earlier this year when they weren't playing well. Kyrie Irving, artist. Let's see.
I don't know how. I love that we're both literally sitting here trying to like Google.
Yeah, we're both. Oh yeah, here we go. Sorry, it was 93 weeks ago.
Yeah, I guess this had something to do with the Gordon Hayward shit too, and who cares? Fuck him. I mean, if we're being completely honest about it, and also, I remember Kyrie going, "If people come at me, I'm gonna come at them." Like, yeah, you have the right to do that. But here's the funny thing about that: as a fan, there are certain things that I do not believe you should say. Let's take the fans in Utah who are notoriously known for saying incredibly racist shit to the players. Shouldn't be allowed to do that. You get racist or you make threats, you should be kicked out the arena. I will even go as far as if someone said to Kyrie, "Hey Kyrie, suck my dick." I'll even go that far as to say that's not acceptable. But someone going, "Hey,"
because that's what he said to a fan. So if he's
I'm going there. No, you gotta let me finish because I'm gonna go there.
Okay, all right.
But if someone is just saying things like "motherfucker," "son of a bitch," even that you suck, things like that, you kind of gotta let that go. And when someone says, "Kyrie, you suck," and you respond with "suck my dick," you are clearly thin-skinned. Or even, hey, the wound may be fresh because he busted his ass in game 1, and it kind of just
that was at halftime.
Oh, that was at halftime. He said that.
That was at halftime.
Oh, I thought that was at the end of the game where he said that shit.
No, and I found the quote. It's about on the court. Look at my resume. Look at the classics. Look at my art. I created it going on 10 plus years now. Don't play with me. Don't play with what I do on a day in and day out basis to provide and go out there and create. Fuck off!
Can I just tell you? And I've been now the NBA started. I'm listening to like a lot of like sports, like talk shows, radios, and I'm gonna bring up Skip and Shannon a bunch. But Skip said something, and every so often Skip and Shannon say something that I absolutely agree with. And Skip brought up that Kyrie has been coasting on that one big shot in the playoffs ever since.
Oh, and Skip knows about coasting because he only will focus on one thing every time there's an argument. Like, he's still convinced that Tim Tebow is a good quarterback.
I think at this point, he's trolling people with the Tim Tebow shit. I don't think he believes that shit at all. I think him and Stephen A. have developed a character, and they just happen to know how to work it. Because I think Stephen A. is one of the best characters in TV history.
Oh, yeah, and he completely fabricated it himself. He's, you know what he is? He's the Archie Bunker of sports. But when it comes to Kyrie, like, I have developed my own heckling. Like, Ash has mentioned that we've gone to a few Celtics games. I went to one game. I was so disappointed. Celtics lost to the Rockets. Okay, and this is the Pierce, Allen, Rondo, Garnett Celtics. Okay, Garnett fouled out, Allen fouled out, Pierce fouled out, and they lost to like the Rockets, who had like a bunch of D-League guys, like some random dude that I've never heard of and never heard since had like 38 points, and it was very disappointing.
Patsy, you're what, a year or two older than me?
I just turned 41. All
right, so you're a couple years older than me, so you'll remember this. A.C. Earl dropped 55 points on the Celtics when he was on the Raptors. They traded him. In less than a week. They played each other. He dropped 55 points on the Celtics. The Celtics have one of the most bizarre franchises, I want to say, in NBA history, because their highs are epic level 10 out of 10 would recommend highs. Their lows are embarrassingly low. Marty Conlon was our leading scorer one year.
I just remember Patino, and Patino like had that fucking speech. It's like, Larry Bird's not walking through that door. It's like, you just drafted you drafted a Hall of Fame point guard, let him play like 6 games, and fucking traded him. Like, they had Chauncey Billups. Imagine Billups instead of Rondo on that 08 team. Or Billups instead of fucking Sam Cassell. But I digress. The taunting that I do.
Chauncey Billups, Joe Johnson, Ben Wallace was in their training camp. Antoine Walker went from a down-low player to Rick Pitino coming in and telling him to shoot threes. We could go on and on about the players who have come and gone. I think Joe Johnson may be one of my favorite defenses with that, because Joe Johnson was that dude, and
I put him on my 2K22 team.
As you should.
Yeah, but the getting back to the heckling, we went. I won some money in the lottery, so I ended up buying everybody Celtics tickets for Christmas. So me, my two brothers, my dad, and Ashes all went to a Celtics game. They were playing the Rockets, and this is when I formed my opinion about James Harden, about how he doesn't play deep. Because I watched this dude just like saunter up and down the court. Like there's a fast break, and he's like, nah. He made it from like the restricted area to almost to the top of the key, like watching the Celtics score. This is when Isaiah was like at the height of his powers. So the Rockets are up 11 at halftime. Celtics came back and took the lead, and Harden, you could tell he quit. But the whole time I was taunting Harden, but I had a very specific taunt that I would use, and I use it for everybody that I go to see, like whoever the best player in the other team. I was like, "Hey Harden, while I respect your talent, I hope your squadron is unsuccessful in their endeavors."
That's perfect. I hope your squadron. You know what it is? It's the squadron part that makes it that much better, because it's not just because it's knowing you and knowing the people you've interviewed and your love of The Simpsons. That was very much a random heckler from a Simpsons episode. He appeared once in an episode heckling Homer, who mysteriously knew how to shoot a hook shot from half court.
The squadron thing is a Simpsons reference. There's the episode where they're trying to get rid of all the immigrants, and Homer doesn't realize that Apu is an immigrant, and Apu gets a fake.
Oh yes,
all these fake documents.
Hello, Homer.
Like,
hello, Homer Simpson. How are you today? And he had the big cowboy hat on.
Homer, how's it hanging?
Yes.
Loose and lazy. Wait a minute. Say something else. Oh, you're noticing how I am talking to you. Turns out I was an American citizen, but plumb forgot about it. Hey, let's take a relaxed attitude towards work and watch the baseball match. The 9 Mets are my favorite squadron.
The 9 Mets! So, Kyrie is undeniably one of the most gifted offensive players in league history.
Maybe the best handles of all time.
Absolutely. It's funny watching. Someone said that once Kyrie's in the paint, it's almost as sure as Shaq when he's in the paint. You don't really see him get blocked. He finds a way to let that ball go in a basket. And just watching him get to the paint, he's masterful. Kyrie,
he hangs in the air. He's not a gifted leaper, but when he jumps and like a guy will jump with him, he'll hang there longer than the other guy, and he's able to still release that ball at an apex where he can get that in there.
Absolutely,
no one's doubting his talent.
Like it's that's the thing about it. And I think that's what annoys me so much about him is that. There's nothing wrong with being a free thinker. And while I have my opinions on getting the COVID vaccine, I feel that everyone should, I'm also not going to knock him for not doing it, despite me thinking that it's wrong. However, you said something very appropriate when the ban was lifted, because he initially said that he wasn't taking the COVID vaccine for all of the people who couldn't perform or couldn't do certain things or work because they were not vaccinated. When the ban was lifted, he went right back to playing. And you said...
It was hypocritical, because if that's who you're standing up for, when did you decide that you were suddenly not standing up for them anymore? Like, he does this shit all the time. Oh, this is why I'm doing this. Well, if that's the case, why are you not continuing that stance? Oh, because it's inconvenient for you now? Oh, okay. Oh, when there are riots, your heart hurts so you can't play. But when Russia bombed Ukraine, it's no skin off your nose. When your whole, you make a big deal about, I donated $100,000. You make $38 million. Like, 100,000 sounds like a lot, and to me, if somebody were to give you or I $100,000, that'd be great. But that would be the same as I make $38,000 a year. Here's $10.
I will say this though: any amount of money is definitely good. We also have to take into consideration all the things that go into being an NBA player, and something Valkyrie always talks about when it comes to NBA players, which is also it's a shout out to Kyrie, but it's also a takeaway. The shout out to him is $100,000 still a lot of money, regardless of what it is. Like, you know what I mean? So that cool. Donating is donating. That's great. The hindrance part of that is, I lost my train of thought. The hindrance part of that is
you could be doing.
Oh, it's not even just that. That's what I was gonna say. You get paid an X amount of money, and someone didn't assault you, someone didn't threaten you. You are upset because someone called you a motherfucker or someone called you a bitch. At that point, you decided to flip them off. You get paid an X amount of money to deal with that. That's why there's a certain level of money, and Valkyrie always talks about that. One of the reasons that celebrities and athletes get paid an X amount of money is specifically for protection for themselves and their family and their loved ones. But it also comes with a heavy crown of having to deal with certain things and understanding that it is what it is. Now,
so I can let me touch on this real quick, because there is a difference. It's not just being a celebrity. Like, if you're a celebrity and you're out, I can say that I experienced something recently where I'm not going to name the name because I don't want to, give away when it was or where it was. But I was on a production, and there was a specific actor that drew a massive crowd, and there were people yelling this person's name, and there were kids, young kids, yelling like, "Oh, give this person my number. Oh, here's my number. Give that person my number because, oh, we can hook up." And, a group of people rushed at this person when they were just trying to use the bathroom. It got to the point where in my job has nothing to do with security or anything like this, but I went to one of the people whose job it was to ensure this actor's safety and keep an eye on that person. I said, what we might want to do is, because there's a crowd of 70 people across the street, when they're done shooting, we might want to have their car ready so they only have to walk about 10 feet.
Yeah.
And we should form a wall to kind of shield, not to like, oh, we're being super obvious that we're blocking this person, but to the point where our presence will distract from where they are, and we can have some people walk over this way and that person can walk behind us and just get right in the car and go, because we don't want someone, "Hey, wave to the kids. Hey, why aren't you looking at us? Hey, why aren't you acknowledging us? Hey, what are you doing? There are 70 people, and we have, on a set, you may or may not have 2 or 3 cops, depending on what you're doing, where you're shooting. But 70 people against 3, those aren't good odds, especially if someone's really determined. Now, when you are in a basketball arena, there are dozens of security, dozens of police. And
that being said, there's also
more difficult for you to get onto the court, to get out and get at that person.
I will say this though: there's also tens of thousands of people in an arena against dozens and dozens and dozens. Although you hear one gunshot, people aren't going to rush the arena. So we could go back and forth about this, but we all know that Kyrie says he's coming back. But if you're a Boston fan, you remember when Kyrie said, "I'm coming back to Boston. I'm here to stay." And then that one pick,
I'm going to sign a long-term extension if you'll have me.
And then the my favorite part of that was Al Horford looking at him like, "Yeah, okay." And it was.
Yeah, I never. I never thought he was coming back.
I neither did I, but it was just.
I wasn't.
It was just.
I wasn't sure I wanted him.
I didn't want him either. But I also find it hysterical that Al Horford was way in the background looking at him like, yeah, okay. Like he knew it was bullshit. Mm-hmm. But again, that goes to the kind of person that Al Horford is. What are your final thoughts on Kyrie Irving before we get into KD's performance in this first round?
Kyrie is incredibly tone deaf. He is oblivious to everything that's going on. If it's not effusive praise being heaped upon him for being a philosopher, a scholar, an artist, a poet, he doesn't want to hear it. And, you know, he will give you two different reasons why he feels that way. Both will be contradictory, but he'll say it in a way where you're like, man, that dude's smart. But, like, if you listen to him, no, he's not. He's just, he clearly owns a word-a-day calendar and tries to put as many of those words into a sentence as he possibly can. Now, he may be educated. He may be well-read. I get it. But he has a lot of competing philosophies that he's trying to adhere to, and it seems to me that he's just using certain ones when they are convenient to him. And it's almost like whatever the flavor of the day is, like it's almost like he's that dude who has 1,000 hobbies but no career. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Like he's like, oh, I'm going to sage this arena because I'm very zen. Oh, but I'm also a Muslim. Oh, but I also have, roots in Hinduism. And, oh, yeah, I found out that I'm Native American, so I'm going to be shamanistic. It's like...
I will say that there's nothing wrong with observing many cultures. I think that it's part of the thing that makes people good. However...
it's the way he does it.
Yeah, it seems more like The Greatest Showman than it does genuineness.
You don't see the Dalai Lama, like, covering himself with tattoos and, like, going out of his way to be like, oh, man, I am so zen right now. Oh, man. Like, did you see, like, how forgiving I was to, like, this dude who yelled at me? Like, oh, man. Like, no, that's not, like, when you are a religious leader, and you are serious about your spirituality, you're not going to, like, sit there and be like, oh, man, did you see how awesome I was? Like, I'm such a great philosopher and artist and poet. If somebody's like, hey, Pope, you suck, he's not going to be like, suck my dick, like...
It depends. Did a little boy say it?
You gotta admit, though, that was a good impression of the Pope.
It was a great... Do you remember that cutscene of Family Guy when it was just like, it's like Dean Cain sitting on a bench. He's like, oh my God, is that Dean Cain? Oh my God. Yeah. That's Kyrie Irving.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's Kyrie. Oh my God, is that Kyrie Irving? Oh, fine. I'll sign 12 autographs and take some pictures. Oh, will you leave me alone? I'm sorry, who are you? Oh, right. Like, you don't know that I'm Kyrie. Like, he wears a shirt that has, like that shirt that LeBron was wearing with himself, with, like, all the guys from the Lakers.
Yeah, that was...
It's like him and Shaq and Kobe.
We're here with the Lakers. They have to be the biggest disaster and the biggest letdown in sports history, right?
Well, my favorite thing about this season... because I wasn't sure who was coming out of the East, because I didn't know what to expect from the Celtics. I thought Milwaukee was going to come back out again. But now I've changed my tune after, the first of the year and what the Celtics did and how they've been playing. So I think the Celtics are going all the way. But my favorite thing is the fact that the two, quote-unquote, best teams on paper, because they had all the superstars, like, oh, this is going to be an epic series, Brooklyn and L.A. They want to combine 0 playoff games. And one team couldn't even make it to 10th place in their conference. Now, don't get me wrong. The West is a lot tougher than the East.
Is it, though? Let's look at...
Yes.
Okay.
Look at the win totals on those teams.
I'm absolutely going to do that.
There were a lot more higher win teams. Like, you know, like Cleveland won like 38 games and got into the play-in tournament.
Nope, 44.
44. Who won 38 games and got into the play-in tournament?
Nobody. It was in the West because the East play-in, it was the Hornets at 43, and the Hornets at 43, the Cavs at 44, the Hawks at 43, and the Nets at 44 as well.
All right, so you got 43, 44. Would that have made the playoffs in the West?
I don't know how true that. I'm trying to. Fucking computer isn't working the way I want it to.
Let me look it up on mine.
Because I really do feel that that wasn't the case here. All right. Motherfucker's doing it again. Oh no, that's why it wasn't working. So yeah. So no, the East was actually better because the 10th spot was 34 with the Spurs, 42 with the Clippers, 36 with the Pelicans, and 46 with the Wolves. The East playing had a much better record than the West playing.
Well, the playing, yeah, but I mean, you got Miami. The top four teams. You have 53 wins for Miami, 51 for Boston, Milwaukee, and Phoenix. 51 wins would get you 1, 2, 3, 4.
Fifth place.
Fifth place.
Now, okay. That being said, the Nuggets were 48, and okay. So for it eventually evens out. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, at the end, like they won 33 games. Like, that's a LeBron James, King James, leader of the fucking greatest players of all time, according to other people, couldn't win more than 33 fucking games with. And we mentioned this a few years ago when he first got to the Lakers. I was like, oh, but I thought he was the best and he could lead any team into the playoff. Well, you know, he was hurt, and it was his first season with the Lakers, and this and that. Like, here's all the excuses. Like, then they go out and get Anthony Davis, who was one of the top 5 players in the game at the time. And it's like, oh, we won the championship. Hooray, we're the best. Although I don't think they would have beaten the Celtics, and I think the Celtics kicked their own ass against Miami. They should have beaten Miami, no problem. But whatever. And then this year, like, it reminds me of the Red Sox in 2012, 2013, 2014, where they went. 2012, they were dead last. 2013, they win the World Series. 2014, they're dead last. Like, how do you go from last place to world champions to last place? And that's kind of like what the Lakers did. No playoffs, rings, bounced out by an inferior Phoenix team, no playoffs. Like, he's been there 4 years and has missed the play. He's like, I mean, if you want to just look at it like, oh, he's got one championship in only 4 years in that franchise, great. But he missed the playoffs twice. He got bounced in the first round, the second.
Yeah, that doesn't really mean anything. Like, I'll be the first one to say, like, if the Celtics won that ring in 08 and then were just irrelevant for the next few years while KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce were there, I'd have issues because it almost seems like what was even the point. But the Celtics remained relevant for what, another 4 or 5 years?
They were in the championship, the East Finals the next year, and they lost.
And yeah, because I think it was KG who was hurt, and Leon Poe stepped up. That was my guy. I have a Leon Poe jersey.
So did Perk. I think Perk got hurt too.
Perk got hurt the year they went to the finals.
So the next year against
LA
against the Lakers again, because the Lakers three-peated in the finals, and they won 2 of those. They won back-to-back because they lost to the Celtics the first year, beat Orlando, like smoked Orlando the next year, and then beat the Celtics the next year.
So, I can't wait to have my homegirls Talar and Carr on the show just because Carr is a Laker fan, but she's also the only Laker fan that I've ever met that's realistic. So,
okay.
It's very rare that I actually find a Laker fan who's actually critical about the Lakers and will be honest about it. So after the Lakers officially didn't make the playoffs, her first tweet was, "Good morning, everybody, except for the Lakers."
Mm-hmm.
So, no one can tell me otherwise that Russell Westbrook wasn't shaving points. I firmly believe that he was taking money specifically to not necessarily lose games, but miss shot, miss layups, miss dunks, miss free throws. Like, Russell Westbrook looked like he looked unlike himself. Now, don't get me wrong. He turns the ball over a lot. He shoots a lot of bad shots. But these were mistakes that were unbecoming of an NBA player.
All right. I'm going to push back against this because this is another one that I said this. How long ago was he? 4 years ago, when he was averaging triple doubles. Like he got the MVP averaging the triple double, and the next couple of years he's like still averaging triple doubles. And I watched a breakdown of what Russ is, and I determined that Russell Westbrook had a little bit of Wilt Chamberlain in him. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that Chamberlain was criticized for just being a scorer. So he said, I'm going to lead the league in assists.
And did it.
To the detriment, he did it, but he did it to the detriment of his team.
Yep.
Where he would be down low, and, again, he was playing against fucking 5'5" guys named Butch, wearing belts and knee pads.
And then when he played, Bill Russell, he couldn't fucking shoot his way out of a fucking wet paper bag.
But the point is, he would have an open shot, and he would somebody would pass him the ball, and he would pass it back. Like, no, I want the assist. Get me the assist. I need to lead the league in assists. Just to say, yeah, I did it. Russell Westbrook would do the same thing. He would box his own, there were times where he would pull Steven Adams away so he could get a rebound. He would intentionally miss shots so he could get the triple-double, get his own offensive rebound. This is who Russ was. This is always who Russ has been. And Russ is a guy, and it's been brought up this year, again, I'm ahead of the curve on this stuff because I'm watching these guys and I know what the fuck is going on. And that my eye test tells me that this is who these players are. I watched him in Oklahoma City. I watched him in Washington. I watched him in Houston. This guy, he's a terrible three-point shooter, but that has never stopped him from hucking up threes left and right like he's fucking Reggie Miller. He is a below-average free throw shooter.
Below-average three-point shooter.
Free throw, too. He's a guy who relied on his athleticism, and he was a guy who was very similar, and I've heard this comparison to Allen Iverson, who is, a smaller guard. The guy would throw his body around, and it's like, oh, did you see Iverson last night? He had 42 points. Yeah, on 8 of 35 shooting. That's not impressive to me. You hit 25% of your shots, and that's not even counting all the misses that he would get fouled on. That's who Russ is. Russ only gives a shit about his stats. He doesn't care about anything else. He doesn't care. He has a crushing loss. Oh, it doesn't matter. Sun's coming up tomorrow. Yeah, that's an awesome attitude to have. But if you are playing a game and you are expected to contribute to a winning culture, going, oh, hey, you win some, you lose some, no big deal. And no, you lose some, and you lose some, and you lose some. You lost almost 50 games this year out of 82.
Can you imagine?
That's an issue.
Can you imagine Paul Pierce or Kevin Garnett saying you win some, you lose some?
No. Could I imagine? I could see LeBron saying it because that's the biggest issue between.
Well, I'm sorry. I said LeBron James. I meant Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett.
No. But what I'm saying is this is part of the issue from some of the players that we're talking about now. You're talking about Kyrie. It's man, how does he get away with that? Because Kevin Durant, who is the face of that franchise, is oh yeah, he's my buddy. He can do whatever he wants. Oh, look at that wacky stuff. Oh, he's always doing wacky, crazy things. Oh, in LA, did you ever hear LeBron criticize Russell Westbrook? We're oh, he went 2 for 12 at the, shooting threes today, and we lost by 19. and he threw the ball away 11 times. 6 of them were inexplicable because he jumps up in the air and has no idea what to do with the ball, and he just heaves it into the third row and then looks at somebody else like it's their fault. And LeBron's like, well, Russ is going to be Russ. He's going to do it, that's why we brought him here. And Russ is like, yeah, so I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. There's no flaw in my game. And I think it's, we had this conversation regarding LeBron, because you're like, oh, LeBron could never play in the 80s or the 90s against those guys. And it's like, I actually played devil's advocate on that one, because I was like, hey, this is a guy, and this whole generation, they've been brought up since they're 15, 16, like, geez, I'm the best. Everybody keeps telling me I'm the best. So whatever habits I have, good or bad, I made it to the league. So whatever I do must be the exact right thing, because look at me. Everyone's been, like, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 16 with Chosen One as the fucking headline. Like, that culture did not exist in the 80s and 90s. Do you know how Kevin Garnett convinced the Timberwolves to draft him? This is an amazing story.
Let me hear it.
After he got his, this story came out after he got his, at the time, record 10-year, $126 million deal. He was coming out of Farragut Academy.
Hold on, let me just say this. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Garnett is worth every fucking penny of that.
Yes. And fun fact, the reason why Alex Rodriguez got a 10-year, $252 million contract is because he wanted to be double the highest contract ever made.
Of course he did.
And he went to one of the worst teams in the league to do it. But that's baseball. That's a different thing. So.
I need you to record something later about our favorite holiday in July.
Okay.
You know what it is.
Yes. Yes, I do.
But go ahead. Sorry.
Hold on. So it's he's coming out of Farragut Academy, which I said like 11 times, in Chicago. Now Chicago has produced some tough players, because it's not like it's like I'm playing against a bunch of white dudes. It's like, no, you're playing no blood, no foul, in the projects, in the ghetto, like. And that's how I grew up playing basketball, believe it or not. Like, where I was playing basketball when I was a kid, I was the only white kid playing. I couldn't dribble, pass, defend, but I could shoot the fucking lights out. So I was always asked to play. So he's getting run through all these drills by the Timberwolves, who have the number 1 overall pick. And, they're not really sure. They're like, well, maybe you should go to college, polish your game a little bit, he's 18, but they would call him 6'13", because he was 7 feet. But
yeah,
they would say he was 6'13".
He was one of those. He was the first guy who didn't want to be known as a 7-footer.
Well, he didn't want to have to play center. He wanted to play power forward. He didn't want to play with his back to the basket, which I think was a great call. So he's going through all these drills, and he's fucking clumsy. He's knocking cones over, like. They're just like, Jesus, like, you know what? Like, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. We really think you should go to college for a couple of years. Like, that's our recommendation. And he's, like, devastated. They're driving home, and they're driving by a park, and there's a pickup game. He's like, let me out. Let me out. Watch me play. And they're like, all right. So he goes into the street, and it's not, high school kids he's playing against. These are grown-ass men that he's playing against. And he fucking took over. And they looked at him and they were like, this is the number 1 pick in the draft. Like, fundamentals be damned. Who gives a shit? Like, look at him play against grown-ass men, his own size. And Garnett wasn't like he was built like Durant, 7 feet tall, 105 pounds. Like he's
No, he was 217. Because I remember having his NBA Jams card.
Like, skinny dude, especially when he was 18 coming out of high school. Like, skinny dude, and he just took over and dominated against these older guys. So that's not something you'd see in today's league. Today's league, it's, oh, look at him, he's so great. Oh my God, like people are still, and this is a topic for another day. This is another passionate topic. People are still like putting Zion Williamson on the cover of fucking video games.
Dear
and
Lord.
That dude never fucking played. And the Pelicans are about to knock the Suns off without him. It's going to be great next year when he's playing in New York and everybody comes to see him and he plays 12 games. He's like, oh, sorry, I can't come in. Listed in the injury report under Thanksgiving.
I don't think, I don't know if I don't think, or I hope that I hope Booker comes back, because if he doesn't come back, it's really disappointing that he didn't get he deserved a lot more. I'm just going to say that. I really wish.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
So, I was talking about Kevin Garnett. I forget what I was going to mention, but it doesn't really matter. Oh, that's what it was. So, I asked 4 of my friends what they thought of the Lakers. We're going to start with my best friend, Lavelle. He goes, the Lakers, he asked him, and the question was, what are your thoughts on the Lakers? Recording now, looking for quotes. So he says, they are the harbingers of their own doom for allowing a 36-year-old man-child to make a roster decision for them like he's playing 2K, ... 19, because that's the last time his number 1 pick, Russ Westbrook, was actually good. Who knew that trading away Lonzo, Ingram, and Kuzma would effectively end in their expected dynasty before it actually had a chance to begin? I would say I'm sad for their fans and their organization, but then that would be a liar. Fuck the Lakers, now and forever.
That sounds like, well, we also know Lavelle is slightly biased as he is a Suns fan.
He's a Suns and a Celtics fan, so it's like double fuck them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, double fuck them is it's a good call.
So, my homeboy Brandon, who's one of the co-hosts on the Black Nerds comic book show, which will be starting next month, I asked him the same thing. They are They are one of the worst franchises in the NBA in the last 10 years. And if not for the greatness of LeBron, they would have 10 straight years of not making it past the first round in the playoffs.
I mean, that's true. I mean, I'll give them that. They made some very poor decisions, especially where it comes like they have no first-round picks for like the next 40 years. They traded all their young players for Russ and AD, and they have no bench. Like, you have to rely on guys who are way past their prime and used to have one specific skill, like, say, Avery Bradley, who could be a shutdown defender. He was Marcus Smart before Marcus Smart with a little bit of, more offensive skill.
Yeah.
But
oh, my God. His maturity?
He lost it. He lost that defensive edge. And if you're a guy that's like, well, what do you do? Well, all I can do, like, I'm really good at driving a car. Nobody can turn left or right better than me. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, man, I can't turn left anymore. Like, what good is he?
And can we just say that Marcus Smart has, not only is he a elite team and one-on-one defender, he's actually turned into, over the last few years, we've watched him turn into a very good point guard.
Yeah. He's had to, I think he's had to add that part of his game, the facilitator part, because he's so inconsistent offensively. Although there was the end of that game 1. Any other year that we've ever seen Marcus Smart, does he pass that ball to Tatum for the layup?
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I thought something happened to Valkyrie. Go ahead.
Does he pass that ball to Tatum, or does he heave up that three?
Oh, he heaves that shit up immediately. And I love the fact that he didn't do it. And the first thing I thought about was, 2 years, maybe a year ago, he would have taken that shot. But
I would say prior to this calendar year, he takes that shot.
Quite possibly. And lastly, my big brother, not in real life, but my big brother, I asked him the same question. He goes, I think they are a mess. Not only are they old, I don't think there are many coaches that want to go there.
No. And they have these pipe dreams of, Quinn Snyder or Mark Jackson. It's like, you're more likely to get Phil Jackson than Mark Jackson. Like, you're not going to get any of these coaches. And you know who they might get? Maybe get a guy who used to play for him. Maybe pick up Steve Nash when he inevitably gets fired by the Nets because, in sports, the team doesn't play well. It's Frank Vogel's fault that, Russ had all those turnovers. It's his fault that he missed all those shots.
And I just love that Frank Vogel is actually getting the majority of the blame, like the majority of the blame from people who know nothing about basketball.
Yeah, they don't have the eye test. They just look at the numbers. Oh, the team was bad. Must be a bad coach. It's like, that's not how that works. The team is bad because the team assembled around them was not good. Now, in that league, the coach matters very little and is essentially ballast, but you will see that if a coach is very good, he can take a collection of various players, which is why I liked Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens took a bunch of nobodies, including Isaiah Thomas, because Isaiah Thomas was a nobody, second-round pick, bounced around to a bunch of different teams, and he was able to insert him into his system and make him a fucking superstar. Like, that team that took the Cavs to 7 games, fucking, and I'm not talking about the one with Tatum, and this is prior to that. Like, Kelly Olynyk was your center. Jonas Jerebko, Semi Ojeleye. Like,
I forgot about Kelly. Is he even still in the league anymore?
No,
because
you had Horford and Isaiah. Like, those are your best players, and then Crowder was probably number 3. But like, if Jay Crowder is your 3rd best player, like, you shouldn't be in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final.
I swear the
Celtics
have this knack of, and I don't know if it's the culture, I don't know if it's coaching, but the Celtics have this way of finding players who should not be in the league and then finding a way to make them serviceable. Because Kelly Olynyk was pretty damn good when he was here. He found a way to... Go ahead.
I was going to say, Boston has this thing for undersized players, mostly undersized white guys, but undersized players who turn into fucking legends when they're in Boston. Brad Marchand, Dustin Pedroia, fucking Wes Welker and Julian Edelman and Isaiah Thomas. All these guys that were like undersized, like fucking Edelman was a quarterback drafted in the 6th round. They turned him into one of the most explosive slot receivers of all time and a Super Bowl MVP. Pedroia had no business winning an MVP in his 2nd year, but he did. Like, he had no business being as good as he was, hitting for power the way he did, with doubles and home runs. Marchand is a guy who was a rat for most of his career and now has turned into one of the most elite goal scorers in the league, like, in the world, because, unlike most sports, hockey takes the best of the best from all over the world.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild how good some of these hockey players are. To the point where in the mid-90s, they could do an all-star team where it was North America versus the world and actually have it be close. Even though, like, that's kind of rigging the game. It's like, okay, the fun fact, the way hockey used to be done, like the way they would draft, wherever you were born, like wherever your hometown was, that's the team that got to have you. Like wherever you were, which is why the Canadiens won 28 championships or whatever the fuck it is, because everybody was born around Montreal. They got all these great players.
I was picturing somebody in like Texas. They're like, the fuck, man.
Well, this was back. There were only 6 teams. It was, let's see if I remember: Chicago, New York, Detroit, Boston, Montreal, and Ottawa. Like those were, I think that was the original 6, but I might be wrong. No, Toronto. It was the Maple Leaf.
Montreal, Boston, New York, Chicago, Toronto, and Detroit.
Yeah, it wasn't Ottawa. It was Toronto. I changed it at the end. But yeah, there were only 6 teams. So wherever you grew up closest to. So if you grew up in California, guess what? You're playing for the Red Wings, because that's the close. That's what sucks, because like you have Chicago and Detroit right next to each other.
God, that's funny. All right.
Yeah, but
so,
that's why they were so good.
So before we end the show, this actually went a lot longer than I thought we were going to. But this is usually what this is usually what happens when we record together.
Oh yeah. I had no. You're like, oh, I only need half an hour. It's like, yeah, but you got to get an hour and a half.
So what we're gonna do is I'm going by position. I'm gonna give you 3 players. You're gonna create a team. You're gonna tell me whether or not this is somebody you're going to decide one player that you're going to pick on this team. Are you ready? And we're going to start this. Yeah. You're starting 5, and then there's going to be 3 players coming off the bench.
Okay.
All right. So at center, Hakeem, Shaq, or Jabbar?
I'm going to go Hakeem.
So would I. Shooting guard, Dwayne Wade, Allen Iverson, or Tracy McGrady?
Give me T-Mac. He's got the size.
Good. I would have went Dwayne Wade, but I'm also super biased. A small forward, Paul Pierce, Kevin Durant, or LeBron James. I'm trying to see I'm trying to see how biased you are here.
Well, I mean, if we're
you're just building a team.
Just building a team. This isn't like, oh, you need a team to win. It's not like a fucking Space Jam situation.
This isn't a Space Jam situation. You're picking a team based on what they can do on the court and what kind of distraction they'd be off the court.
All right, so I've got Hakeem and T-Mac. And we're talking at the height of their powers, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Based on the career that they've had.
Based on the career they had, yeah.
All right, so then I will take Paul Pierce over those 2 guys because I have Hakeem and I have T-Mac.
I'm surprised by that. I was like maybe he'll lean towards LeBron.
I thought about LeBron, but LeBron at the height of his powers was a choke artist and very deferential. Kevin Durant at the height of his powers needed 2 other superstars. Paul Pierce
was always
led
Paul
that
Pierce.
08 Celtics team and always played LeBron when they played against each other. He played him one-on-one for the most part, and he held his own. Is he as talented as Durant or LeBron? Absolutely not. But we're talking at the height of their powers, with the career that they had, and who they are on and off the court. If I'm building a team, I'm not just saying because we already went through this whole exercise. Just because you have all the top quote unquote names does not mean your team's any good. Ask Brooklyn and ask LA. So who you got next?
KG, Tim Duncan, or Giannis?
Duncan. I love KG, but Duncan's bigger, and Duncan, I said for many years during that run that I said that Duncan was the best player in the league, and I would take him number 1 overall in a draft of everyone in the league. You're
taking Tim Duncan number 1 out of everybody in the league. That's including Michael, Magic, Larry.
At the time, they were winning championships.
Okay.
At the time, I had him and I had KG just behind him, and then Kobe. Those are the 3. Those were my top 3.
So just so you know, I'm going Wade. So I said I'm going Hakeem. I'm going Wade. I'm going LeBron. And we're going to forget. I'm going KG. I think KG is the greatest power forward of all time. I know Tim Duncan has the hardware, but I pick KG over Tim Duncan.
Just watching what Duncan did offensively, defensively, and that fucking 3-pointer he hit to send the Suns home that one time.
I mean, let's be honest. If it wasn't for the Robert Horry hip hockey check.
Oh no, they would have lost to that Suns team. However, he started winning it as soon as he was in the league, and despite the fact that they had David Robinson, once he got on that team, he was the face of that franchise.
All right, and last of the starting lineup, we have Steph Curry, Magic Johnson, or Luka Doncic.
Luka can't stay healthy. I love Steph, but I'm putting Magic as my point guard. That dude will do everything. Yeah, Magic's my point guard.
I also will go on record by saying, and Celtic fans, you can hate me if you want, but Magic Johnson is the greatest point guard of all time.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
All right, so now these are your bench players. Do you go Reggie Miller, James Harden, or Ray Allen?
Ray Allen was a fucking assassin. I'll take him. That dude was unguardable at the end of the game. I
have a hard time disagreeing with that. I go Reggie specifically because, again, my bias. And if I have to pick one shot, I think 50% of the time, if I need one shot and I have 1 second left on the clock, I'm almost always going Reggie. Next up, we have Klay Thompson.
That's why I took Ray.
Next up, we have Klay Thompson, Scottie Pippen, or Charles Barkley.
Give me Charles. My team needs some edge and some anger.
This was difficult for me. I think I may actually go. I don't know if I go Klay or if I go Charles. I don't go Scottie because, again, to his own admission, if I had to make the call again to not go in the game, I'd go in the game again. I wouldn't go in the game. And yes, I know that was more Charles Barkley than Scottie Pippen, but I don't do a Scottie Pippen. And last but not least, Dennis Rodman, Draymond Green, or Al Horford.
Rodman. I need a defensive stop or I need a rebound. Fucking Dennis Rodman is the guy. I need somebody kicking the balls. Maybe him or Draymond. It's one of the two.
This one, I don't know who I go with because Dennis Rodman is one of my 3 favorite NBA players of all time. But Draymond, I think, is the greatest role player of all time.
Okay.
But I think Al Horford is the better leader out of all 3 of them. But I also think that, like, if you need a 3, if you need a rebound, or if you need a block, you go Al Horford. I think I'm going Al. I think I'm absolutely going Al. And that says a lot considering how much of a big fan I am of them.
Okay. I mean, that's not bad.
All right.
That was a fun exercise.
All right, and before we go, other than Michael Jordan, who was the greatest player of all time?
If I'm going by, I need somebody.
You're building. I'll give it to you. You're building a team. They're in their prime. Every player in NBA history is available, but you want to build your team around this guy. Who do you pick? I'm always going Hakeem. 10 times out of 10, I always go Kareem. I always go Hakeem. Hakeem Olajuwon, I think, is the greatest player of all time, and I will not even. When people talk, they're like, "Oh, it's Mike." I'm like, "It's Hakeem." But anyway, so.
I mean, I want to say, like, there's a couple of guys I could just go with right off the top. Like, if we're going the way the league is now.
You know what? I'll do you one better. We'll go the league 2002, where it's right at the cusp of still playing hard, but still leaning towards, like, a new era.
Bill Russell.
Really? I'm not shocked by that at all, because I know your feelings towards Bill Russell and what he brings to a team and to a franchise.
You're talking leadership. You're talking desire to win. The man is 21-0 in closeout games. He is he's not a guy who needs to score 60 points, but if you need him to score 60 points, he'll score 60 points.
But he doesn't really want to.
No, he doesn't care. Like, one of my favorite things about him that I just learned recently was that he was one of the top track and field athletes in the world. He would run like a fucking gazelle. Like, nobody, like he would play like games 48 minutes. He'll play all 48 and not be winded. Like, he would facilitate. He'd rebound. He'd block shots. Like, he loved playing defense. That was his thing. He's like, all I want to do is play defense. Like, I want to make sure you don't score. He was so passionate.
I hope that I can find this digitally, but I have a top 10 plays of all time, and it's like dunks, shots, steals, and one of them is blocks. And Bill Russell was talking. He goes, my mentality was, you come in here, I'm going to knock it back. You come in back in here, I'm going to do it again. The third time, you're going to think about it for a second. And it's funny because as great as he is, he's always just the most humble person ever. Oh, here's the last question. We're changing the logo from Jerry West because I don't think he should be the logo to begin with. Who's the logo now? And what is it?
Oh, Jesus. We had this conversation a while ago.
I go Kobe with the fadeaway.
Well, I mean, if you want to go... If it's me, the Jordan Jumpman. I mean,
yeah.
Or the Shaq dunk, but probably the Jordan. Before we go, there's a Bill Russell quote that I thought was always amazing. Somebody asked him once, "Hey, do you think you could have gone up against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?" And he goes, "Young man, you have the question backwards."
Yo, that's it. It's over. We don't need to go any further. That has been the Old Man Wade Show. I want to thank Patsy the Angry Nerd for coming here and doing this. Patsy, tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me every Thursday on Throwdown Thursday Podast. You can find us on every podcasting platform, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, all that. You can also come join the fun on our Facebook page, Throwdown Thursday Podast. Join the group, join the regular page. You can check out some fun articles and things on throwdownthursdaypodcast.com. And yeah, that's where you can find me. You can also find my book, How Much Do You Tip an Exorcist, on Amazon.
I got my copy.
Check that out. That's there are some stories from that are being made into a horror anthology. One of them filming right now. Super awesome about that.
I'm mad that we're actually friends and I'm just hearing about this.
Well, it's been on the DL, but I will say that there is a short story. When I say short, I mean 2 sentences. One called The Terrible Magician, and that one is part of the anthology, and I will be playing the role of the Terrible Magician.
Yes.
I was trying to come up with some kind of really extravagant name for this magician, like, oh, the Amazing Bernardo, or something flamboyant and extravagant and like an embellishment. So I like wordplay and everything, so I ended up going with his name is Magic Ian, and there's going to be
that took me a second. I was like,
yep. And there's going to be a line in the movie where he's like, because it's just going to be like 10-15 minutes long, but he's like, oh yeah, talent runs in my family. I have a brother who's a guitar player. Music Ian.
Get off my fucking show, man. Yo,
yeah, check that out before it ends up on Hulu. Check it out, and so you can be one of the first to be like, oh yeah, I knew that story.
Oh God! Plug the book one more time.
Yeah, How Much Do You Tip an Exorcist? It's on Amazon. It's pretty rad. I'm also part of 2 anthologies called More Lore from the Mythos, Volumes 1 and Volume 2. I also have a story in a book called Duel of the Monsters, which is a lot of fun. a lot of different things. I have a serial killer who is a descendant of the original Invisible Man, because that's a public domain character and I can use that. And she comes across this insectoid alien and they have a big old battle. And it's fucking amazing.
Big old battle.
Yeah, well, they're fighting over the same prey.
You can find me at oldmanwade.com, articles and more. You can find me on oldmanwade.com on Twitter, Instagram, and the TikTok. You can find me on the Old Man Wade Facebook page. I mostly just talk comic book shit on there. But also, coming up next month, we have BBN, Bald Black Nerds, with myself, the Superior Super Woke Doom, and I forgot what Brandon's name was. I forget what Brandon's name was, but Brandon has a name on there as well. I'll be going as, instead of Old Man Wade, I'll be going as Old Man Hood, or Red Man Hood. I can't remember exactly what I'm going as, but I'll be a Red Hood parody. Thank you for listening, and as always, be excellent to each other. Peace.
Damn it, Wade!